Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to episode 7 of Forever and Ever, the Killie Fans podcast, coming to you from an extremely warm East Ayrshire KA postcode. We're here in the famous Summerhouse studio. We've actually got the doors open, so you might be able to hear some seagulls squawking. We've got quite a severe seagull issue, so you might hear some seagulls in the background, but that should only add to the summery ambience of tonight's episode.
It takes you back to Rugby Park anyway, because given the amount of seagulls that are flying about there.
I've just seen Katie Faulds tweeting that if the Rugby Park seagulls would shut up, she'd be having the perfect night. They are famous for it, so you might hear a wee bit of extra special seagulling in the background. We hope everybody's having a lovely July so far. We're thrilled to bits to be back here tonight. Plenty to get through this evening. We've obviously had 2 fixtures since we last spoke. There's been somebody linked with signing with the club today, a right fullback, which is very much needed. We're going to have our famous Killie Trust Bingo. We're going to talk a wee bit about the young players that have come through in the past and that have come through in the past few weeks, actually. We had somebody who made their first start for the club at the weekend there. We're going to talk about that. But tonight we've got something extra special for all you listeners. We have our first guest on the podcast, the one and only Craig Bryson, former club captain, is going to be joining us and having a chat about his career and having a chat about all things Killie. We're absolutely buzzing to have him in the studio tonight. Before we go any further though, the most important question, Killie Cal, how are you this evening?
That's definitely not the most important question here.
That is.
It doesn't matter how I'm doing, I'll still always be here on a Monday night.
Look, you're looking very dapper this evening. You've got the full shirt with the shoes, the suit trousers. You're back in the office, you're telling me?
Back in the office, absolutely. So the dream for working from home for 2 years is now over, unfortunately. So that's us back in the office, open to the public and all. Whereas we're in the office for a wee bit, but we're still shut to the public, so I could get away with. I was cutting about in joggy shorts and that in the office, but
you've got the professionals back on, mate.
Certainly know what I need in weather like this, right enough. So,
but you're looking very well.
Thank you.
You're looking well, and you're wearing the extreme heat well as well. You couldn't even tell. You don't even look flustered, mate. You're looking great. So again, thanks to everybody as always for all the messages that we're getting on the Facebook page, that we're getting on the Instagram. We need to get an Instagram to say it every week. The Twitter account. On the forums, all that type of stuff. I got a nice message for Junior Stephen Milligan, messaged me, and this is what he said. Hello mate, just want to say how much I've enjoyed the podcast, really enjoying it. Can't believe he didn't give David Lilly a bigger shout out. All action. And always remember a bit of fanfare from the Hearts fans when they re-signed Neil McCann, brought on as a sub. Safe to say he lasted 5 minutes. Big Lily smashed him.
That's
and
it.
He got stretchered off.
That was him gone.
And congratulate Callum for the Sunday team for me while they won.
Oh, thanks very much. Much appreciated.
Thanks very much to him. Samo as well on the Twitter, sitting in the summer house, sun shining, open on the telly, beer in hand, listening to Forever and Ever, chewing the fat and all things Killie. What a time to be alive. Captain Conker, always very supportive on the social media channels, saying that every episode's been a hit every time. Ross Denham, thanks very much for your message, saying it's a terrific podcast, keeping them entertained in Mexico.
I know, again where I would rather be, man.
Absolutely tremendous. We've had a few different messages across the platforms, and everybody getting involved and chipping in with the stuff that we're talking about, whether it's been the kits, whether it's been your favourite players, whether it's been the weird random Killie stuff you've got. That's what keeps the podcast going. And as somebody else said, it's just a fans podcast. We're fans just like you. We don't have any insider knowledge, we don't have any special training or anything like that, and that's why I think people are enjoying it, because hopefully we're getting more points across, and I've got a couple of points I want to get across.
Well, so I've heard, but on the factor of the Killie memorabilia,
right, yeah.
A few folk have been in touch with me with that, but we've got to do a special and we'll keep it for that.
Well, no, let's have it. Come on, let's just go for it.
Well, Andy Barlow, obviously a good friend of the show as well, very good friend. He actually has Nakamura's ball that he scored Celtic memorabilia that is, but the one at Rugby Park.
Well,
and he's a massive Killie fan. His last minute free kick at Rugby Park.
Okay.
Because what Alan Coombe does when he scores, he gets the ball and boots it away. And Andy Barlow, well, not to give away GDPR here, but stays right at Rugby Park. His mum and dad day.
Is it land in the garden?
Aye, their back door walks into the east stand. So
unbelievable.
They were able to, they've got a whole heap of boys in there, and rumour has it that Nakamura's boys in there.
Ah, there you go, bit of memorabilia. We should sell that.
No, that's it. Auction it off, aye.
And keep the profits. David Hanna, I want to give you a shout out, mate, for a blog post that we actually retweeted on the page, but I was going to give you a shout out last week, but it just says on Twitter that his name's David H, so I wanted to wait to get his full name. So thanks very much again for your input. So honestly, absolutely buzzing with how well it's going. People are enjoying it, that's the main thing, and hopefully tonight it's your chance to pay you back for sticking with us for the past 7 weeks, because we've got somebody who's worth listening to.
So if they used to put a fiver in that listens to us, and obviously that goes to us.
That goes,
for all the time and effort that we've put in.
For your Fred Perry shirts, mate. Look at that. Look at this guy. So Craig Bryson coming up later in the show, which is absolutely... I'm actually kind of buzzing just to meet him, to be honest with you.
Well, he's a very, very good guy. I've had a couple of dealings with him in the past, and he's always happy to help out. So we'll talk about that when he's here.
Absolutely. And obviously his new club, Stenhouse Muir, that's our next game on Saturday. But when we come back for the first wee break, before we get into things with him, we're going to talk about the past 2 games. I've got a couple of observations.
Well, I've been buzzing for this all day.
Because I texted you earlier on. So that's what we're going to start on, everybody. We're two matches we've had over the past week or so. A good win against Montrose on Saturday, and one each draw by Partick Thistle on the Wednesday where we lost the penalty shootout. So let's talk about that when we come back. Let's do it. Hello everybody, you're listening to Forever and Ever, the Killie Fans podcast with me, Paul Montgomery, and the one and only Callum Scott. We are getting ever closer to Flag Day on the 30th of July. We're playing Dundee United. Dundee United are beginning to scare me slightly with some of the signings they're making.
A few good signings.
They look like they're signing some good players.
But then out and now, they signed Craig Sibbald as well.
Right, okay.
He's a good player, but it's one I'm surprised we know quite.
Right. So
Dylan Levitt or Stephen Fletcher.
Aye, so good signings. So we're hoping that we get some signings in the door. There's been a right back linked today. I'm not even going to try and attempt his last name. A young right back from Arsenal who was on loan at Crewe last year and played a bit of football, apparently quite physical, tall and strong. That seems to be the Derek McInnes type. So I don't know, and it seems like that's going to get done over the next few days. But we would say that about Jordan Jones 3 weeks ago.
And that's still here.
And it's still up in the air. So as these things develop, we'll obviously chat about them when they happen. More on that to come in terms of needing a right back. But first of all, let's start with the Partick Thistle game. The one each draw in the cup. Beat on penalties. I'm not even caring about the penalties. I'm no into all that stuff as we touched on.
As we've spoken about, it makes it a wee bit tin potty.
What was your thoughts on the one each game with Partick Thistle?
Really poor. I mean, with all accounts, I think we started quite well. We got ahead. It was probably a deserved lead at that point. It was good to see Donnelly got off, got on the score sheet in his first start for the club, for a header as well. But it just felt like, I mean, Armstrong misses a good chance at 1-0. If he scores that, it's game over. But Thistle just seemed to grow into the game, particularly second half, and it was just poor. I mean, we got a goal ruled out that shouldn't have been ruled out at the end of the day, but you could make the case that Thistle's goal was unfairly ruled out. Side. I mean, is it a handball for Lawless when it fumbles in? But he can't really do anything about it, can he? His hands are in, but I just thought it was pretty poor, but it's a million miles. When I seen the team, I was like, that is no what we'll be. Like, that's that. It's still. I've been saying this for weeks already enough. And
this is the exact thing. I wasn't bothered. Up until probably Saturday there.
Yeah.
And I was like, nah, this isn't going to be the team. We're going to have this guy. We're going to have that guy. Now I'm like, right. Well, when are we going to have these guys? Because we've only got one game now.
Well, I've already been showed to be talking absolute pish in the podcast for one of the first episodes. I'm like, McInnes is the guy who have his squad's ready.
Who gets the boys in early.
That's that. Right. So that's definitely no happening. But I think that's just one of the challenges that you face when you're Kilmarnock manager instead of Aberdeen manager. You've got to wait around guys. It's clear we've missed out on guys. There's no doubt in that. So that's just one of the challenges of being bossy at Kilmarnock, that you've not got the luxury to just go out and say, right, we can offer you that straight away. There's a 2-3 year contract. We've got to wait and bide our time. But I honestly thought we would have more in the door now than what we do. However, I'm still trying to remain positive. McInnes' own words were that we would have a completely that will not be the team that played in United. So hopefully in the next week, let's see that.
Aye, well that's kind of where I was at. So the Partick game for me, the worry for me in the Partick game, and again I'm trying not to panic here, but it was the same as last season. That was what worried me. It was I felt like watching us last year, and we actually were better in the second half against Montrose. I thought we changed when we went to 4 at the back. It seemed to open the game up quite a bit. But I can take the Partick game and the first half of the Montrose game as a kind of combination of that full, like the 3 halves of football. And it scarily reminded me of last season, when the issue last season was I was the same. We didn't have any identifiable pattern of play. We didn't seem to have any identifiable style of play. And let's be honest, right? We averaged our way to that league last year. I mean, we were shit for 80% of the season. That league was just that bad that we managed to win it. But we won it by 2 points in the end, right? We had a last minute goal. And obviously the high that brought, all is forgiven, man.
Absolutely.
Job done, right? But we were bang average last season. And for the Partick game there, in the first half of that Montrose game, it was just like watching them for last season. And that to me has become a concern, because and maybe I'm setting myself up for that, because I expected us to have nearly the team that we were going to see, and we've not got anywhere near it.
Well, that's exactly what I said, and I think what most people would say, just with the way that McInnes conducts himself, you just assumed that, but that's not me having a go at McInnes. I think there's other factors at play there. Why we don't have these guys in the building yet? You're looking for, the only thing I can keep try to say is like the two teams. I mean, the team on Saturday was more like what I can imagine us going forward with. You could see it was a kind of strong 3 centre halves at least. Still no keen on 3 at the back either, but you could see that was close to what the starting 11 could be, with a couple of wing backs introduced into that system and Lafferty back in for the start. I think that's not a million miles away for where we'll be. But you're just looking for somebody that's willing to take a wee bit of responsibility. A lot of the time we've not had that, and that's what really frustrated me last season, is that at the end of the day you can sometimes get away with it when you're in the top flight and you're not having to win every week, and the game passes you by a wee bit. But when teams are sitting in against you, you've got to have somebody that's willing to kind of take the ball and make things happen. Lafferty's got that, but he's at the other end of the pitch for it. You want somebody in the middle of the park that's able to say, give me the ball, I'm your first pass, I'll take it under pressure, I'll open it out, and just somebody to create a wee bit of space. And something's not happened, although I'm delighted to see McInroy get a goal, and what a finish it was as well on Saturday. Brought it with a little backdrop as well, just a touch and hit. So if he can keep bringing us that'll be good. And obviously Donnelly, who was missing Saturday, I think he'll be a starter. Rory's come under a wee bit of criticism again. I mean, you and I are Rory fans, but the same way. But he's not been
fair criticism, I would say, mate.
No, because you can't dress anything up. You can't dress anything up. But there's worse culprits out there than Rory McKenzie, and that's not me having throwing Rory on the bus either, because I do like him, but I don't think he's maybe suited. He's been asked to be more the creative out of these guys, and that's not what he's good at.
We don't. This is what I mean, man. We don't know what we're doing yet. That's what it looks like to me, because Donnelly will play, I assume, and McInroy's brought into play, and Power's going to play, right?
Credit Power, I thought it's been a better player the last 2 games.
Power can do, which has been nice to see. But I still don't know where these guys all fit in. I don't know what system we're going to play, and I think I would personally want Lafferty and Shaw playing. But if you're playing with the 2 up front, then
it's got to be a 3.
We've got to be a 3 at the back, but we don't look right with 3 at the back.
See, that's what is a wee bit concerning, because when we've seen the team for this one, I'm thinking, that's a back 4. Well, that's good, because I'm like, because I still can't see where Jordan Jones, who we're still expecting to sign after 3 weeks, where he fits in, because I don't see him as a left wing back, but maybe that is what he's going for. He can maybe play higher if we bring in the boy for Arsenal, who was traditionally a winger and moved back, so you can see he's an attacking player as well. But maybe he's been asked, if that's the case, he'll sit and make it a 4 and Jones will bomb for it. I don't know, but I can't see where it is. In McInnes' comments after the Thistle game said we were forced into playing that formation, and I'm thinking,
because Lafferty didn't play.
Yep. So I'm thinking a wee bit like, I would have like it. To me, it was a positive that we went with a 4-3-3. But McInnes and Docherty ken what they're wanting. They're far more on the picture than us. For all we know, they could have 4 or 5 guys up their sleeve that are ready to walk in and make it a right good 3-5-2 system, because you couldn't ask for really 2 better strikers than Sean Lafferty to lead you to the level
that's right.
anyway.
And I think the 3 centre halves, that boy Wright looked good.
He looks good in the ball.
Steady. So the right back we're signing for Arsenal is Ryan Alabiosu. Right, that's all. That probably isn't.
But when I heard it in Arsenal commentary, it didn't sound as bad as it looks.
Right, okay.
It's hard to no, it's bad. That's terrible.
So it seems like he's going to be signing. So that's obviously a positive, because we definitely need bodies in.
Right, we're crying out for somebody like that. But I think the midfield 3 could be strong as well. I mean, you've got any choice of Power, McInroy, Donnelly, McKenzie, and probably somebody else to come into the fold, and that's without even saying Alston, who can come in and do a job. And obviously you've got Polworth that's still hanging about. Maybe he's still McInnes seemed to give him a wee bit of a chance. So I think that, but we need the 2 wing backs.
Aye, well, they need to decide. It seems to me that we need to decide if we're going with these wing backs or we're going to go with a 4-4-2 and play with 2 wingers, because it's Fraser Murray and it's
Armstrong.
And without being overly critical of command at football players, which is no the job of this podcast and no something I'm really particularly interested in doing, the weak spot of the team is the fullbacks, right? That's and I think that's alright to even put that out in the open, because Callum Waters wasn't even meant to be our first choice left back last year. That was meant to be Brandon Hornstruck. Lee Hodgson was brought in to be back up to Jason Naismith. So the 2 of the guys were backup players and they had to step up, and they have stepped up, right? There's far worse football players in the world than these 2 guys. But it's glaringly obvious that until we address that issue, the balance of the team is going to be wrong. And whether or no it's pace with Jones or it's a bit of trickery with somebody like Fraser Murray, or they're going to bring in somebody athletic like this boy for Arsenal, they've got to do something, because they know it's nothing. That's what it feels like, right? It feels like a big bowl of averageness, and it affects the whole team. I think the balance of the team.
Well, I think actually somebody made a very good point on the forums, KillieFC.com forums, and I'm not sure if it was yourself or no, that thinking that maybe all take is 1 or 2 signings and things just they change, because you're right, it does have an effect on the rest of the team. And I think that's what we were crying out for last year. Well, you seen that, and it's still, we weren't amazing, but you seen the difference that Lafferty just made right away. And at the end of the day, Callum Hendry's a player I really liked, but like for like, you're talking that Lafferty comes in and takes his place essentially, and he really just kicks his own because he gets points for nothing and can bring out the best in other players. And I think you're right, because that's what we're trying to say, is that I still think we're a good few short. But see, once we've got the first choice wing backs there, or what is identifiable, what we're going to be playing, I think that's when it all just fits into place, because as the back 3 does seem strong. I thought Mayo looked really good as well.
If you go with that Mayo, Big Taylor and right. Yeah, I think you're all right.
Solid back 3 with him and a them.
You've got Sanders to come in, Stokes if he's required. Whether McGowan will get moved on or no, I don't know. But it's this midfield. Is it 5? Is it 4? Is it 3 up top? Is it 2? And to me, that's the slight concern now, and I'm sure it's the concern of McInnes and all, to get that cleared up. And I'm sure he will, but I think I wrongly assumed that it would be sorted by now and we could see, because what's going to, I think, unfortunately going to end up happening is we're not going to see this team when we play Dundee United.
Which is a second half.
Aye, it's going to be 4 or 5 games into the season now. Mm-hmm. We're going to be relying on a loan. We're going to be relying on moving guys on, the market opening up. And by then, you've maybe dropped points that you would have got.
Well,
but what can you do?
That's it. And again, not getting into panic stations, but that's why I would never ever say Dundee United. You'd never say the first game of the season's a must win. You've got 37 games to make it up. But the fact you've got Rangers and Celtic after that, and I'm the one for literally one of the points from in the podcast, I want to go to Rangers Celtic and I want to give them a game again. I want to take points, but you're really up against it. It's a game that you've got to be looking at, right? Try and get 3 points there, and then we build for there. So hopefully, again, by the time we're here next week, we're definitely going to have a couple of more bodies in, and then hopefully I win against any on Saturday as well.
Well, that's it. So, what I text you earlier on, right? I just watched the games and I just thought we're so bang average. Like, we're not dreadful, we're not getting beat. You know, we're not losing to United to Partick and then kind of beating. We're doing what we're supposed to be doing, right? Roughly, although the Partick game was a bit disappointing. But at the end of the day, this is another thing. I mean, it's Partick. right? It's no Stranraer, right? It's no Darvel. We're still playing. We're in the same league as them last year, right? We can't expect to go and beat Partick every time we play them. It's a 1-each draw, right? Wasn't it great to watch? But that in isolation doesn't cause panic.
Especially with a team that's never near it.
Where we're going to be, right?
Exactly.
And then we go and we get a good one against Montrose, who are actually quite a decent team.
I like them. They knock the ball about well.
At their level, definitely. It was the averageness of the whole thing that bugged me, right? And it got me thinking about somebody that I thought, honestly, looked at this guy, and I'm like, and again, this isn't a criticism, although it could be taken as a criticism. And I've watched Killie for 30 years, and I've seen some poor football players, and I've seen some incredible football players. I think this guy is the most average football player that we have ever had. I can't remember him doing anything good, and I can't remember him doing anything particularly bad. And his name is Brad Lyons, right? Brad Lyons, the most average football player. And again, that's not meant to be a pure criticism, because being average is alright, by the way, compared to some of the folk. But I watched him again and he came on as a sub, and he seems fit enough and runs about and put a tackle in, and I'm just like, can you think of anybody who's more a like Joe average squad player than what is it his role is?
See, that's the
Maybe
thing. No, because that's what it stood out a wee bit, is the fact that you can see that he's obviously got the fitness, the strength, like he can go and press and all the rest of it, and he does. He works his socks off when he's not Nathan Tyson, but we've got Craig Bryson on this one, so there we go. But you can see that he's got that about him. He's got stamina and he looks busy, but he doesn't seem to do much on the ball when he gets it and stuff. But equally, to try and give him benefit of doubt, as you would yourself, he's obviously not had a run of games to really prove to say, is he this, is he that. He was brought in, he actually had a really good goal scoring record in Northern Ireland, I think.
Right?
He's like, for a midfielder, he scored a good number of goals. I think it was at Coleraine, I could be wrong on that. And then I think it was Macclesfield in England, and he was up and loan at St Mirren, and that just was bypassed. Folk just remember him because he wore specs. And then it's the same as here.
Davids was the same, mate. That's all I thought remember him for.
But I can totally see what you're saying, and I think that, again, to be fair, he's not had a proper run, but I've not seen enough to be like, what is his role? He always looked like the kind of like for like replacement for Rory if we were winning, just to be like, he does the same kind of job, but Rory does it better.
And that says it all, mate, to me, because Rory McKenzie, and I've turned on Rory McKenzie in a positive way. I didn't like him a few years ago, but now I'm like, you know what? But to me, Rory McKenzie's that guy. Mm-hmm. We don't need Brad Lyons. We've got Rory McKenzie to do the things. To be a 6 out of 10 at everything. And I'm thinking, what's this guy's role? And I promise you, I'm not having a pop at this individual guy. There's been a lot worse than Brad Lyons playing, right? A lot worse. And I'm happy to have him about the squad. But I'm trying to personify my feelings on the whole team. And it's like, what are we doing? We're neither here nor there a lot of it. It's just like a guy. Do you know what I mean? No terrible, no great. It was the same as last season. We averaged our way to that league. We relied on 2 or 3 big moments because we had nothing exceptional all season. And I'm like, and it's got me thinking, is that what we're in for this season? Is it an average season where average this year will get you maybe 45 points, 40 points, enough to finish 9th, 10th? And it's the same as last year. We average our way to win in the league. We're going to average our way to stay up. It's just like, is that maybe what we just need to accept? I don't know if I've been a wee bit too.
No, I think that
optimistic, mate. I'm beginning to think.
No, but it's especially in the fact that you've got Derek McInnes there. That's the big factor. That's his change. Say we were getting up with, God rest his soul, Tommy Wright, right?
Wherever he is.
So if we were getting up with him, I think that's what the best we could hope for, is to try and solidify your position and build for there. But it's the fact that you've arguably got the second, third best manager in the league.
Aye.
Like, so he's a cut above. McInnes is already 2 or 3 places above where Killie should be anyway, in regards to where we'll be at the end of the season. And know that he's, I'm going to say the word miracle worker, but like, you've got to trust him, and the players will come for him, and I still believe they will. I still believe that we'll get, like, I think the guy, Wright, I don't think we would have got him. Like he was on trial at Hearts. I know Hearts turned him down, but he would have probably went elsewhere for more money, or back down to England or something like that. I think that, like, say, going to work for Derek McInnes is a factor in all this, that I still 100, well, not 100%, but as close to that we will have better players in the building. And
97% sure we're getting better players.
Heisenberg's purity here, man, that's what I'm going for. But I think that we will get guys in the building who are certainly a cut above what we've got to know. And as you said, that's not to slate these boys either.
No, definitely
because they do have a role to play if they're happy to come in and be a bit part player. But if we want to be where we want to be, we can't have passengers.
No.
Or passengers is maybe harsh as well, but you know what I'm trying to say. And I think that McInnes will have these 3 or 4 quality players will still come in. And I hope by the 1st of September, 2nd of September, when we go to Easter Road, we'll be settled and we'll think, right, there's our team.
Excellent. Well, fingers crossed that's it. Nice bit of positivity for Killie Cal there. I'm getting a wee bit pressing the panic button here. But listen, but at the end of the day, we're putting results out. It's maybe no brilliant to watch. We've got another game coming up this weekend against Stenhousemuir. And the cup, and if we win that, we should go through to the knockout phase, which is always the target. And then the league starts properly the following Saturday. So we'll see how it all goes. Right, one of the bright spots for the weekend was David Watson, who started the game and had a good game, by the way. So after a wee short break, we're going to come back and talk about Killie young players that have come through the system, guys that went on to have good careers, folk that maybe we expected to do a wee bit better and haven't managed it, and obviously talk a wee bit about Watson himself and his performance. All right, after that short break. Hello everyone, you're listening to Forever and Ever, episode 7. It's the Killie Fans podcast with me, panicking Paul Montgomery here, and one and only Killie Cal. We're talking about the League Cup win at Montrose on Saturday. David Watson, who I think was captain of the under-18s, started the game, played wide on the right, and then moved infield a wee bit in the second half, and didn't look at a place at all, which is really heartening. We all love to see these young guys coming through, mate, and I thought he did really well.
Absolutely, I thought he was in the first half one of the few that stood out. I thought him and Mayo looked really good, and I thought Shaw had a couple of decent touches, but I was very impressed. And I thought he was traditionally like a centre mid, but he played wide in the right, that's where he was. But I think but again, you know what to put a lot of pressure on this boy, and that's not what we're doing. But I think there's a lot to be excited about. He came in and he looked like one of the better players, as far as I'm concerned. And then it's not just a case of which we can all be guilty for, the young players coming through the ranks and they could have a pretty decent or average game and folk think, oh, what a performance for the boy. But I honestly did think it was a bright spark, and one might continue. I hope he gets more and more minutes, because it's been far too long for we've been able to bring through.
Absolutely, mate. So we've obviously sold Charlie MacArthur after only 5 or 6 appearances down to Newcastle. That's the way it's got shades of kind of Matty Kennedy about it.
Absolutely, yeah.
Done maybe slightly early, but can he turn it down? But to have Watson in the team, obviously Innes Cameron, we'll talk about Innes Cameron another day. We could do an episode on him. Some of the chat on the Killie FC forums.
Oh, that's...
It seems he's splitting opinion massively at the minute. So we'll come back to Innes Cameron, but another young player who's playing. We've talked a wee bit about Stephen Warnock already. So this is what we want to see. We want to see these young guys coming through and not only doing well for the club, but selling it on, you know what I mean, and making us a few quid, which goes back into the coffers and hopefully goes towards developing more and more young players. So David Watson, one to look out for, and he had a really good game on Saturday. So when you think of young players that have came through, mate, over the years, obviously I'm slightly older than you, so I'll remember
Birkenbeek and all the rest
guys coming through, but when you think of players that have came through and that you were excited about, and whether or not they went on and made it or didn't make it, who kind of comes to mind for you then, when young players that came through?
There's a strange one that sticks out for me right away was Daniel Mackay.
Alright.
Barry Mackay's big brother.
Right.
Who was supposed to be the next big thing. I think he was like SPL Rising Star or something.
In the sticker book? If he was in the sticker book, you've made it anyway, mate.
And he was... he scored goals for fun in the reserves, it would have been at that point. He just like thinking that, well, this is the next Chris Boyd, and it just never materialised for him, which is a shame. I think he ended up, he was on loan at Ayr at one point, and then he just fell right out of the picture, and then he's playing junior and amateur football now, I think. So he's one that I remember being excited about. It just never happened. Along with through the whole Kenny Shields team, to be honest.
Anyway, a few, of course.
One of my favourites, and obviously we brought him over for Ireland, but I thought Jude Winchester was brilliant. Excellent name.
And Jude Winchester.
Excellent, and I thought he was a guy that he was quite a quiet boy,
right,
off the park and that, but when he played, it looked like he played with Killie for 10 years. I've never seen as much confidence for a boy in the ball and that.
Quite an interesting. He reminded me a wee bit of Durant the way he moved. He had quite an interesting gait, didn't he? He was kind of straight back and moved about. He looked like he could be a player.
I thought he was an excellent player, and I was really sorry to not see him come through. Obviously, one of my best mates, Big Robbie, and all come through. He's still playing at Morton, but he's one again you had higher hopes for, and he moved to Dundee United. A lot of people gave him criticism for it, but
Robbie Muirhead, by the way, for the uninitiated.
So had his reasons for going, and I don't think MD could blame him when you know what was at stake.
I must say for Big Robbie, the past, because he lost his way a bit, and I think you could tell, but the past 2 or 3 times I've watched him, I thought he looked good.
He's always
playing off the left or off the right and cutting in, man, and he looked.
He's got all the attributes to today. It's and he's worked with Morton, certainly kept him up the season before. Scored a couple of really big goals in the playoffs, and then last season
and he's definitely turned it around with the fans.
Aye, because he was a weapon boy there. And he'll be the first to tell you that. But it's so Robbie come through with Kiltie and all. It's somebody I know that I really like, and I still think that he has got it in him to go down to England, and still think he's just one good season away from getting that. I know there's only so long you can say that. But I think he did well with St Mirren last year as well. It got overlooked. Some folk can look right away at goals and assists, and he went through a wee phase, but it's not just all about that. A couple of my mates that are St Mirren fans were saying that they love him. So I'm happy to see him doing well, but there's been plenty. Mark Kahara as well. Again, I'm just going through the whole Shields team, but what about you? Who sticks out for you?
So, the ones that really stuck out for me, I actually really liked the look at Aaron Splain when he came through.
Played the kind of cam.
A big strong guy and all for his age, and it never obviously really worked out. I know Paul Di Giacomo went on and played for the club and had a good career, but I was mega excited about Di Giacomo when he came through, man.
He was higher rated than Boyd, wasn't he?
When he played a game against Celtic, I think it was the day we beat them 1-0. Maybe Boyd's debut.
He comes on for McCoy.
And I think it was Oliver Tebley.
Oh wait, sorry, Boyd actually didn't come on for McCoy. They seem to think that.
Oh, is that?
But McCoy went half for him, and I think Boyd came on, but they never played in the same pitch. But there was
I
know.
So Di Giacomo that day, and I remember thinking
he does all the work for the goal, I think, as well, doesn't he?
Oh, does he?
Square it to Mahood. I could be wrong, but I could be
right. And he was getting linked with moves down in England and all that, and I thought he's going to be a proper sensation. He obviously had a good career, but I had mega high hopes for Di Giacomo. But I thought, again, same as you, there was a few, like even Sean Dillon when he came through, played at left back.
He was
sturdy as anything.
Ian Flanagan,
who we actually talked about in one of the earlier episodes, had quite a bit of fat by him. Stevie Murray, when he came in and played wide on the left, he get drafted in for Nawa. One day appeared, it might have been Dundee United, I might be wrong. And one day, all of a sudden, this wee winger's playing, and he was amazing, man, for 4 or 5 weeks. And he had done all right couple of seasons, and then, as they tend today, they sort of trickled in the leagues.
End up at Thistle, and then
he was good at Barton, and then they moved to the next team. But so he was another player that I was dead excited about, and it never really quite kind of hit off. Matthew Kennedy and all.
Absolutely.
He's had a good career too.
Carved his career out because I was worried for him because he had a wee loan spell at Hibs, I think, when they were in the champ. Or just after that, and he didn't, like, kind of, I think Stubbs stayed him up,
right.
and you're thinking, but he done well, and then Tommy Wright taking him at St Johnstone, and he was class, and got his move to Aberdeen, so it's no doubt Kennedy's a good player. Don't tell me any different.
Seems to be linked with us, like, back and forth and all, doesn't he? Somebody who might end up coming back, but I liked him. Obviously, Kenny Shields' team, Buck and Bagan when they came through. I mean, that was dead exciting. So I was left footed, so I loved Alex Buck, man. I thought, this guy's the absolute Doug's boys. He's here playing wide on the left, tremendous to watch, can buy players and stuff. So we've had loads over the years, and they've obviously went on to, but like Stephen A. Smith came through, and obviously what an incredible career he ended up having, and you could tell from a very early age he was a cut above. Do you know what I mean? He was even when he was 13, 14, like miles ahead of everybody at our age group, and he went on and did great things. So it's just funny how it all works out for these guys, isn't it?
See, it's the mentality, it's no the ability kind of thing. It's about the hard work that goes with it, because there's been plenty of players. I mean, I'll tell you that in the Man United class of '92, I think it was a boy, Raphael Burke or something like that. He was a winger who was supposed to be kind of like Taunton maybe wanted to bring him up instead of Scholes, but he was supposed to be the next big thing, but again he just get in with their own crowd and all that. Obviously the likes of Beckham and that were sublime anyway, even at that age, but the likes of your Ken Neville's and stuff, like it's about the mentality that got them there. It wasn't necessarily the ability. Obviously good players, so no, there's been plenty of that, and it's just sad because Killie should be a club where our youth always get a chance. And for too long we've not really had that.
What's ever happened to Greg Taylor's brother? He was meant to be
Ali Taylor, because well, remember he initially turned down a contract offer, and you're thinking, and then next thing he signed on again, you're thinking right now, which could be a good season for him, and then never kicked up.
Never seen again. So, very interesting. The highs and lows are coming through as a young Killie player. So if you've got any that you can think of listening to the podcast, fire us a message, or we'll stick up a thread as we was doing the accounts, and you can let us know young players that came through and you had high hopes for, and they either did or didn't fulfil their potential. Certainly somebody who 100% filled his potential was Craig Bryson. And after this short break, we're going to be joined by the man himself to talk about his glittering career in Scotland and in England with the national team as well, and of course his time at Killie. We'll be back soon.
Delighted to be joined by a man who needs no introduction, but I'm going to do it anyway. He pulled on the famous stripes 129 times and captained the club for 18 months before moving on to the English Championship to play for none other than Derby County. A player who many of the listeners, including myself, nominated in their perfect Killie player for his engine. Welcome, Craig Bryson. How you doing, mate?
Not too bad, mate. Not too bad yourself.
Aye, good to have you, man. Good to have you. So, we spoke about just before you come on, you've had an ankle injury for the last few years. How's that keeping you now?
Obviously it's not been great. It's not been great when you're a professional footballer and you're going into work every day. You sign for a new club, you want to do well and stuff up at Aberdeen, and then a couple of games into your kind of tenure there, you get injured, and it's just innocuous. I just plant my left foot, pass ball my right, and my ankle kind of just gave way, and then at that time you just think you've sprained your ankle. I'll be back in a couple of weeks or whatever it is, and yeah, it's probably an injury, it's never going to go away now. What with 2 or 3 operations down the line as well, umpteen injections to try and get to this stage where I can actually play some football. So when I was at Aberdeen, I got the injury. I thought I'd be back. Then it didn't work out basically because of the injury. End up at St Johnstone and then at Stenhousemuir and just try to get games here and there and manage myself.
Well, talking about games there, just that 4 week one, you were saying that's you more than 600 games in your career now, so it just shows the amount of football that you've played.
Yeah, it's obviously incredible for me. When I was back at Clyde at the age of 16 or so, and if you said to me that I'd play over 600 games in my career, I'd snap your hand off. And if you say you play over 600 games then you'd have to retire, you'd have snapped your hand off. But when it gets to that stage and you've done it, and you don't want to retire because it's all you know, you just want to keep on playing and playing and playing for as long as possible. But I think there's going to have to come a time where your head's going to have to rule your heart.
Absolutely. Well, we can't thank Craig enough for coming on to the podcast. For the listeners that don't know, Craig's helped me out when I was at uni, when he was at Derby County, done an interview with us in Burspaw, and then a couple of other stuff, all Killie related, to get printed in the Commander Standard. So we're delighted to have him on as our first guest for the new podcast that we're doing. So we're going to discuss Craig's career highlights and focus on his time at Killie primarily as a Killie podcast after all. We'll touch on his time at other clubs as we look forward to welcoming him back to Rugby Park on Saturday as a Stenhousemuir player. So that'll be one that you'll be, well actually before that, on Saturday there, a comfortable 3-0 win and a goal for you. I don't think you'll score an easier goal in your career than that, right enough.
It was a good run though. It's a good old saying, isn't it? You have to be there to tap it in, but the ball's been played on laid on a plate and I've just had to tap it home. But I think if you actually watch the goal, it was a really good move from us.
Absolutely.
Fraserburgh, well, due respect, weren't the greatest of team that we've played against or we're going to come up against this season. We'll also get a lot harder game on Tuesday night against Montrose and then a very tough game at Rugby Park coming up. But I think that was my first goal since coming back to Scotland. My last goal was obviously for Derby, and when you come back up the road and you're kind of touted as a goal scoring midfielder, to go that long without scoring is really frustrating. But obviously injuries have played a big part in that.
Well, that's it. Well, you'll hopefully get through a spell with it now, but just as long as it's no Saturday, I think we'll be alright. So, to take us on to Saturday, I mean, I think it's maybe only the second or third time you've played against Killie if you've been back up the road. How are you looking forward to being back at Rugby Park?
I look forward to being back at Rugby Park. I don't particularly like playing against Kilmarnock. I respect the club too much, the same way like all my previous clubs that I've played with, that the chance that they've gave me, if they didn't give me that chance then I wouldn't have had the career I've had and stuff like that. So I do find it quite hard going back and playing against your old club, but it is what it is. It's a good old argument, like would you celebrate if you score and stuff like that, and for me I wouldn't, out of respect for the fans and the club and the people that I still know there who were all great with me at my time there and I still speak to and keep in touch with to this day. So for me it's a big one, and it's a big one about respect.
Well, that leads us on nicely, because I was just going to say one of the reasons for your few performances against us was the fact that for the first time in 28 years Killie were at the top flight last season. Did you keep an eye on us last year? Were you happy to see us back up? What were you like watching our growth game and all the rest of it, if you did?
I keep an eye on like all my old clubs, so when I get back into the change room after a game, the first results I look for is my old clubs to see if they're doing well and hopefully they get a win. Obviously it's tough when you're playing against them, you don't really want them to win, but that's just part and parcel of it. I obviously live in Kilmarnock, so my son is obviously a Kilmarnock fan.
I'm sure there's a screensaver there, that was brilliant.
Yeah, I take him down to the Kilmarnock games with me. I was down at the Partick Thistle game there just midweek, went to the Ayr game, which was disappointing, but that is what it is. Kilmarnock achieved a goal of getting promoted, and I was just happy as MD just to see the club back where they belong in the SPL, and hopefully this season they can push on. Obviously Derek's made a few good signings and stuff like that, and hopefully the squad's taking shape and hopefully can get back in the top six.
Well, just to continue on that, McInnes was the man that got us back up. You know him very well, he signed you for Aberdeen, so how do you think that he will do with Killie this season? You're saying hopefully they can push into the top six, and what was it like to work under it at Pittodrie?
It was good. I think there was a wee bit in the kind of Aberdeen press, and to a certain extent that it was like we fell out and all this kind of stuff, but that was never the case. We were both just frustrated. He was frustrated I wasn't on the pitch when he signed me to kind of play and help the team. I was frustrated I wasn't on the pitch, but there was never any bad blood. And like when he got the Kilmarnock job, I was delighted. I texted him, Tony Docherty as well, just to say like all the best, hope we do well, and I want Kilmarnock to do well. Obviously it's my old club, and I texted him obviously when they got promoted and stuff, and they text you back. So it's just one of the things in football. You go to a new club, you've got great intentions, the managers get great intentions, you've got great ideas and stuff like that, but sometimes it just doesn't work out. Happens at the top level, it happens at every level in football and stuff like that, and there's nobody more gutted than yourself as a player when it doesn't work out.
Well, that's something that, again, just in a wee tangent, that I always think that, I mean, when people get frustrated with players being injured, but you're thinking, how does the player actually feel? They want to be on the park just as much as you do in the end of the day, because Scott Robinson's going through something similar at Killie, didn't he?
Yeah, I used to get really frustrated and read the headlines or the pre-match to the game, and it's just like Craig Bryson injured, or whatever it was, ankle after your name, and you weren't available for the game. Like, it's frustrating, and I'm not playing the mental health card because that's like obviously a serious issue in the world just now, but it kind of gets you down. You can get through like midweek a lot better when you're around the lads and stuff, but it's like monotonous when you're in the gym and I'm just standing balancing on one leg or doing like one-legged squat and all this kind of stuff to try and strengthen my ankle and calf raises and all that rubbish that you need to do to try and get back in the pitch, and you're watching all the lads go out to training, they're coming back in, they're having banter, and you're just like kind of sitting there wanting to get involved, but you can kind of get through that a wee bit, and then it comes to the game and you see the lads like delighted when they win, you're in the change room and stuff like that, and you're just sitting, and it's hard to feel part of it. And then you've also got your social media and fans and your media stuff these days where it's like he's injured again, he's just there to get a wage and stuff like that, but ultimately you want to play football.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. Before we delve into your spell at Kilmarnock, we just want to touch on Clyde a wee bit. Can you tell us what it was like coming through a club like that and the grounding in football that it gave you?
I think it was excellent. I think I got offered a full-time contract with Motherwell when I was back at the same age, and Clyde came in for me, and I decided to go to Clyde for like a lot less money back then. I think it was like £50 a week or something, my first wage as a YTS at Clyde. Obviously Motherwell were in the SPL at that time, and I thought if I can go to Clyde and try and get into the first team quicker, then you can kind of get up the ladder that wee bit quicker than instead of being stuck in like Motherwell's under 18s or reserve team or something. So I went to Clyde, and that worked out fantastic for me obviously. not a club with a great budget or great facilities or whatever. They ended up releasing, I think, near enough our whole team apart from myself and Eddie Malone. I went out on loan and I think Eddie stayed and was round the first team, but I went out on loan. I went to EK Thistle and played junior, and that was a real eye opener for me. That showed me what playing football with like real men was. It kind of toughened me up, and it showed you like the standard that you had to get to. If that was junior level and you want to step up to like the first division in Scotland, then you need to like really dedicate yourself, and that was a great grounding for me, and I was delighted that I'd done that. Sometimes at the time you're like thinking, is it good, is it not? But when you look back now, it's probably one of the best things I've done in my career was going loan to EK Thistle.
So is that what you'd encourage folk to do? Just try and play as many games as they possibly can instead of sitting on a bench somewhere or being part of a bigger club and sitting in the stand every week going to play football?
Yeah, for me, obviously it's just my opinion. I think young lads should always go on loan. They should always go and play competitive football. I'm not really. I've obviously spent a lot of time down south, and you see like these young lads that have got great potential, but they're playing in like the under-21 league, and I just think like it absolutely means nothing. It doesn't matter if you win 6-0, get beat 6-0. It means nothing. You still come in the next day, and people are happy that they've got 100% pass completion and all this kind of stuff. I'd rather they went out, learned football, learned to play with like real men, learned to play in the leagues and stuff, and actually learn the game. Because I think sometimes you're playing reserves, it's a wee bit fake. It's all this passing out for the back and through the final thirds and stuff, but when you go to like lower leagues and win bonuses matter for people's mortgages and your bills and stuff like that, then that's when the pressure actually starts. And I think if you can go and do that in an early age, it gives you a better grounding and start.
Well, Clyde, you obviously had many happy memories, and most notably, as you can expect from about to say, you did score against both halves of the Old Firm. Folk seem to not talk about the Rangers one as much, but given the magnitude of the Roy Keane debut and all the rest of it, I know you might be sick and tired talking about it,
no.
but what's your memories of that days, and did you get Roy Keane staff after it, or do ways maybe?
No, he actually had a Clyde tap on that day, didn't he? I actually swapped strips with Eddie McGeady that day. In fact, I don't think we swapped strips. I think he gave me his. I don't know, mine's probably in a bin somewhere or something like that, but no, I've actually got my strip. I've got it framed. Mum and Dad got it framed for me, so it was a nice.
That's surely one you'd want to keep on.
Aye, of course, I wouldn't want to give that away. But back in the day, it was like a large strip, or it's nothing, and I'm not like the biggest I'm in, so it was hanging off me, so it was in quite a big frame. But I actually love scoring against Rangers at Ibrox, just because obviously when you're growing up in Scotland and it's Celtic and Rangers this, Celtic and Rangers that, but when you actually get to the stadiums and you see them, see how big they are, and they were full that night and stuff, to score there, I think like my family had like money on me to be like first goal scorer or score at any time or something like that, so that was good. And we actually came so close to winning that game. We went 2-1 up, and our keeper made a mistake with a couple of minutes left, and then Rangers went on to win 5-2, I think it was. But to score at Ibrox at such a young age was an incredible experience for me. But going on to the Celtic game, like all the talk about that was just about Roy Keane's debut. They'll just turn up, they'll beat Clyde by 3, 4, 5 goals, he'll be excellent, he'll be man of the match, he's too good for Scotland, all this kind of stuff. And you can understand it to a certain extent. Like, he's a world class player, played in Man United for God knows how long, played for Ireland, captain, incredible player. But we just kind of went on with our business. Like, that was kind of our team talk going into the game. Is like, they're just turned up, they expect to beat us, we've got nothing to lose. We were effectively a team of trialists going into that game, because Clyde at that time, they went through a period where they get rid of everybody, like I said earlier, and everybody came on trial, and we picked a team from that. Well, the managers picked a team from that, and I don't know, it just seemed like it was meant to be, and I think it could have been a lot worse for Celtic on the day.
I was going to say, I watched the highlights back here earlier, and you absolutely battered them. Like, yeah. It was 2-1 going on 4 or 5, to be honest.
I think we had a couple of goals disallowed before we actually scored. Then obviously we scored, we go 2-0 up. I'm pretty sure I had a goal disallowed as well. Was that in
the season before, was it? I think
I got a goal disallowed actually in the season before as well, but I actually scored in that game as well that got disallowed. I think that maybe I put it was 3-0 up or something.
Oh, I went through and it was offside. I think it was, that's
yeah.
Right. Aye.
But yeah, and it always gets a bit dodgy when they bring one back. You're just expecting, alright, we've had our fun, they'll just go in and win the game. But I think, fair credit to the lads, we stuck it out, and like you say, I think we thoroughly deserved a win that day, and it's probably one of the one of the greatest upsets in the Scottish Cup.
It's still spoke about to this day, and if I'm actually right in saying, we played Celtic at Parkhead the week after for Roy Keane's home debut, so there was a big display with the tricolour and all that, and they beat us 4-2, obviously we still went at Parkhead at that point.
But it was good because obviously I played in Roy Keane's debut and beat him with Clyde, and then played in Robbie Keane's debut for Kilmarnock, and we won on that. I think Chrissy Maguire scored the winner or something that night. My memory's not the best. That was a long time ago, but
spot on.
I think so. It was good to play in both their debuts and actually win the game. But that was the same. Everybody was talking about Robbie Keane's debut that night and forgot about wee old Kilmarnock.
That's it, and still again spoken about to this day. And I think that was our first win against Celtic in 9 years or something like that as well. So it was a bit of history. So you obviously get your move to Killie off the back of that. Of course you did make the step up, but at that moment in time did you just feel like you were ready for it and that you'd achieved what you had to at Clyde and it was the next step in your career essentially?
Yeah, I think so. I think I'd also sort of said about the Motherwell situation. I'd dropped down to Clyde, I'd done my 4 years there. I think I'd played 100 and I should actually know because how many games I played there. I think it was about 115. So I thought I'd played a good amount of games, I had a good amount of experience, I kind of understood football more, I knew more about the game, so I thought I was ready to step up to the SPL at that time. But when I was at Clyde, on the back of the Celtic 2-1 game, I went down to Derby, effectively on trial, and they decided not to offer me a deal. They said they wanted to offer me a deal, but they didn't have a reserve team at the time, and I wasn't good enough, or I wasn't ready to play in the first team. I think they just got relegated for the Premiership, and said I wasn't good enough, really, reading between the lines. Or they were trying to tell me in a nice way. I wasn't good enough at that time, and looking back, like, they were right. So then the opportunity come to Kilmarnock, I was obviously delighted. It was a step up from Clyde. Everybody at Clyde had wished me well. They knew it was a good move as well, so it's not like we were left in bad blood with that one either. So I always go back to Clyde as well, and then getting the move to Kilmarnock, you're just like, right, I'm stepping up. I want to now just establish myself at Kilmarnock at a different level. I want to play every week and then we'll see what happens. And then kind of played the 4 years at Kilmarnock, and then I think everybody at Kilmarnock wished me well when I went down south. So
what was your expectancy at Kilmarnock with the club? How much did you know about us before you came there, given was it Rutherglen your fair initially, or the East End of Glasgow?
I was born in Rutherglen, but I lived in East Kilbride my whole life, so obviously I knew about Kilmarnock, but I'd be lying if I sat here and I know a lot, to be honest. I just knew obviously they were in the SPL a lot. Joking aside, that was really it. Like, I knew they were a big club. I'd obviously been and watched games there. I'd seen them play in the SPL and stuff and thought, do you know what, if I can go there and do well, then you can never know what can happen.
So it was Jim Jeffries that signed you, so what was he like to work under, him and Billy Brown? I mean, folks say good cop, bad cop, but I'm assuming that's bad cop and badder cop with a pair of them.
It was kind of weird because you get there and then it's like an eye-opener again. They're just like what's classed now as old school, which you don't kind of really see these days, whereas they would absolutely batter you at half-time if you weren't playing well, or at full-time if you get beaten stuff. They'd cane you, and they'd cane you for like 15 minutes at half-time. You're thinking, well, I need to go back out here in the second half, I don't even want the ball. But no, they were good, like, but I always think like the Jim Jeffries and Billy Brown that you've seen at the weekend, they were completely different during the week. Like, they were nice people, they had a good sense of humour and stuff, but in football you just find that everybody's just a winner. You just want to win, and you win at like basically all costs, and they were winners. And obviously Jim Jeffries came across like being moody and angry all the time on a match day, but I think that's just his way of showing that he wanted to win.
Well, no many folk have got a bad word to say about Jeffries. Everybody that plays under him has loved him in the end of the day, and do you think a lot of that's kind of missing for the game now? Like, do you think it's what managers would have had to adapt their style a bit with the way that people are now?
100%. The way kind of society is, like, I think some of the things that would get said to you back in the day, like, I don't think young lads can actually accept it these days. People kind of feel that they're they can't take any criticism. Everything's got to be positive all the time, but I was always brought up where black's black and white's white. There's no grey area. Like, if you play well, you play well. If you don't, you don't. And you get told if you play well, and you get told if you play bad. It's a nice way. So I was always happy with that. But as a player, you know yourself anyway. and everybody goes onto the pitch trying to play well. You don't actually go out there thinking, oh, I hope I have a bad game today. It just happens. There's so many different things that can affect your performance, like the people you're playing with, the crowd, the conditions, your family. There's so many things. It's not just down to like sometimes individual, and that's not me deflecting from an individual having a bad performance. You just can't have a bad day. Like, everybody goes to work. Well, most people like 9 to 5. You have bad days at work. You don't mean to have bad days, and it's the same as football. But football seems to get lost, and it seems to have this different kind of crowd thing that goes with it, because you don't go to like Morrison's or a car garage and just stand and abuse people, or go home and abuse them on social media. But football, that just seems it's allowed. But yeah, that's just the way it is, and you know that's the way it is before you go into it, and you just have to, well, you just accepted it back then when social media wasn't that bad. But I think that's been a catalyst for it getting a lot worse.
Well, you're talking about abuse there, and I don't think you would go through it much harder than you would have at Somerset playing for Killie, so I just got to come on to that there with in regards to, we've seen the return of the Ayrshire Derby last year. It was great. It's the first I'd ever seen Killie play here in the same league. Competitive games have been few and far between. You were fortunate enough, you were able to play in 2 Ayrshire derbies, if I'm right in saying, in the Scottish Cup, first one at Somerset, and you scored in it. So what's your memories of that day, and how was the magnitude of the game? How does it compare to, say, like a Notts Forest derby and all the rest of it?
It's just different. I know you shouldn't say it, but there's just a different feel for a derby. Like, you're just up for it more. I don't know how to describe it, and it shouldn't be the case, because you obviously want to win every single game, but when you're playing for a team and you're playing like their rivals and you know how much it means to everybody, there's just a different feel about it. There's a different buzz, and for me, I always preferred the games. I always preferred like going and playing in the bigger games, the games that meant more, the games where they had the most fans and stuff like that. Like, not call myself a big game player, but that kind of route. Whereas it's easy to get up for. They're easy games to get up for. I just loved them. I love being involved in them. The bigger the game, the better. And I remember that day being absolutely Baltic. I think it was raining quite a fair bit, and for some strange reason when I scored, I decided Klingsman into a puddle and was Baltic for the rest of the game. So that wasn't the greatest thing I've ever done, but it was obviously good to score down there, and see the Killie fans behind the goal and stuff was tremendous. And then I think we drew that game, didn't we? And it came back to a replay. And obviously it was good to bring them back to Rugby Park, and I think we battered them that night, to be fair. Was it
10 men as well, with Fernandez getting sent off.
So that was excellent, but I just love playing in their games. I wish they were in the league, but it would be good to have played in a few more.
No, absolutely. Well, that's really my opinion as well. That, I mean, you seen it last season. Don't get me wrong, the game was a sore one at Rugby Park when they beat us, but it was unfortunate the first game against them, it was still the COVID restrictions. There was only like 2,500, 3,000 there, and you can just see the potential there. And then selling out away ends at Somerset twice, and it brings out the fans for every day, and that's only a good thing.
I think that's what football's about. It's all about rivalries. They're the games that everybody looks forward to, especially the fans and the players. Like, they're the games you want to be involved in, and when they've been in different leagues for so long, I think that kind of maybe helped it a wee bit, because when Celtic and Rangers are playing each other maybe 4-6 times a season, sometimes it can get lost a wee bit. That doesn't, but like other derbies can, but you would love to play them more.
No, absolutely. So you ended up becoming captain at Killie at just 23 years of age, and I would need to double check if that potentially makes you the youngest ever captain in the club's history. I mean, every chance you could have been. So how did it was Jimmy Calderwood that gave you that? He taken over for Jeffries. How did you feel about being made skipper of the club, and especially when there was senior guys around still? You had Gary Hay, Fowler, Pascali, and did this add extra pressure to the potential relegation that was on the cards that season? Because it was halfway through or whatever you get captain.
I don't know. I found it a wee bit. I was a bit nervous, being that age, looking around the change room for like older lads who'd been there and done it and stuff like that. But Jimmy Calderwood, I think he took it off Pasca and gave it to me, which is a wee bit awkward as well sometimes, but you know what, man was like, he's just mental, so he was fine with it. So I don't know, I didn't feel any pressure at that age, to be honest. I think when you get older you understand the pressure a wee bit more, but you obviously say that when you throw young lads in, they'll sink or swim, and it was one of them. You got the armband, the manager said to me, I think you're our best player, and I want my best player to be my captain. And in the change room and stuff, I wasn't the captain. I'll say that now. I was too quiet in the change room to be captain, but I just wore the armband on a Saturday, and then obviously you can lead in different ways, and I just felt that I led maybe in a different way, just with like work rate and turning up and giving 100% every single training session, in every single game. But it's easy to say that, but that's generally what I done. I played with so many players in my career that are technically night and day away from me, but I always thought that there's got to be different parts of a team, so I just always go and get myself as fit as possible, so I could run about like I'll get called a headless chicken a good few times, so run about like that for 90 minutes, because I don't know, the penny maybe just sunk with me when I was a wee bit younger, that if you're not good enough at one thing, don't try and do it. If you can't do it, let the people that can do that, and you'll be a different part of the team. So I would always like be the player that would kind of start the press, because I was renowned for being fit, and I accepted that. I accepted that was my role in the team. Like when you're playing with players like Eremenko and stuff, people like that, like you can't compare my ability to his ability, but he can't run about the way I can run about. So I was happy to do like his running, to give him the ball, and then he can play the assist for like corner and stuff like that. So the penny dropped for me when I was quite young, that kind of like a car engine, you need every bit of the engine to run for the car to go. And as I feel like in a team you need like so many different things to work well for the team to actually perform, and I just felt like that was my role in the team.
Well, you obviously taken over the captaincy. We played Falkirk in that last game shootout. I think you scored against Falkirk earlier on this season, a big win up there, 1-0, and it all came down to the game at Rugby Park, last game of the season. I mean, how do you get yourself up for that? I mean, you're saying the big games are easy to get up for, but the pressure in that's off the grid. I mean, you're playing for folks' jobs and livelihoods. I mean, what's that like, especially as a 23-year-old guy?
That's a different pressure. That's a different pressure completely. But at that time, I probably didn't understand that as much, because I didn't really understand like mortgages and like living costs basically at that time. And people are saying like your older players that you mentioned are like, people can lose their jobs, potentially lose their houses and stuff like that. But I don't think the penny actually sunk with me at like that stage, that's how big the game was. I didn't enjoy it one bit. Like, I think they missed a 1-1 or whatever it was, and that changed everything. But when you look back and you're talking about people's jobs and it's down to you in the pitch, obviously that was a terrible season for us. In the end we seen it through and we stayed up, but the pressure on that game was different, and obviously there was a pitch invasion after it, but I think that was just relief more than anything. And I think I remember just getting back in the change room and just sitting there for a bit thinking, I don't want to go through that again. And then at St Johnstone we basically did, so it wasn't enjoyable at all. But it's not nice, but it happens every season. Teams get relegated,
Somebody's
and
it's
it's part of football. And I suppose when you get older, people know they go into football and the admin jobs are behind the scenes, that if you do get relegated you could become redundant and stuff like that, but you don't want to be that group of players that kind of make that happen.
Absolutely. Well, before we go in, there's water there. I know if you're sweltering, feel free, there's a bottle there for you if you need it, because it is warm in here now getting. So as you spoke about, that season wasn't what we wanted, but the season after with Mixu coming in is one of my favourite ever. I mean, Steve Clark era of course, but Mixu, some of the football we played under him was phenomenal, and the excitement, you were bringing guys in you'd never heard of, and they were class. And how was that for you? What sticks out for that season? Did it suit you better, being more possession based? Did you enjoy having the ball more? And you said yourself you're good defensively, can't you, go and win the ball back and start the press?
It was more starting the press like in the final third, like for their goal kicks and stuff like that, because I was always just renowned for being box to box, so I just thought as a midfielder I could try and do a bit of everything. I don't think I was great at anything, I just thought I was like good at most things, if you know what I mean. I'd always try and end up in the box. The one regret I've got at Killie is I didn't score enough goals. Got a few assists, but I didn't get enough goals, and that's what I wanted to add to my game a lot more. But like you said, like the way Mixu set us up, we kind of like the three in midfield. I think it was me, James Fowler and Liam Kelly at times, and we were in there basically just to basically just run about, get the ball and get the ball to the good players, kind of in that sense, and we get it to like Medi, Tawil and Eremenko and stuff, and they'd be a lot of creative players for us, and it just kind of worked. We worked a lot in like that formation in training. That just didn't come off like after one session, because they ended up calling it kind of like a Christmas tree, like a 4-3-2-1 kind of thing. And it just worked for us. We just had players that kind of suited the formation, and I suppose that's credit to the manager to find a formation to get all his best players into and to get it to work, and it was a great season to be involved in.
So what sticks out for that season? I mean, I remember we went through a phase, I think we were beating everybody 3-0 for about, I think we had 3-0 in the trot, and we played really well against Old Firm as well. I think we got a draw at Parkhead, and we should have beat Rangers a couple of times and didn't, but what sticks out for you?
I think the Rangers games really annoy me actually, because we were probably better team in the games, and then because we'd pass out for the back and stuff, we made silly mistakes, and when you're playing against better players and teams, they punish you, and we got punished off Rangers in games like that. But I think one of the games that stick out was away at Tynecastle when Eremenko scored the curler for the edge of the box. I think that's one of the best games I played in at Kilmarnock, and really enjoyed that game and stuff, and just enjoyed that season. It was just kind of like we rode a wee wave. We obviously were on like the real back of a downer the previous season, and you're then turning up for pre-season the next season thinking, oh, I don't want to go through that again, and then it just kind of flipped. But
well, that game at Tynecastle was a catalyst for it. I think we were bottom of the league at that point, and then we went 1-3-0 there, and we just went on an incredible run. And the man we spoke about there, Eremenko, again, you briefly mentioned him anyway, but how good really was he? Have they loved hearing about him? What was it like to play with and training? Well, maybe in training he's one of these guys who maybe turns up on a Saturday, I don't know, but
yeah, it was good. Like it obviously just didn't move that much, but no, that's a nice way to put it. But you don't mind as a player, because you know if you gave him the ball, like his vision, his creativity, his passing, just his skill was excellent. So you don't mind that. If, like I spoke about my kind of role in the team, his role in the team was to be creative, and he done that. Some of the passes he would play, his free kicks, he was always on the money, his through balls to corner, like I mentioned, and stuff like that. So it was excellent. It was far too good for us, but then the older you get, you realise that it was at us for a reason. So there must have been something wrong elsewhere for him to be at Kilmarnock when he should be higher, and it wasn't in the best of shapes and stuff like that, and he could have got himself a lot fitter and in a better shape and stuff, and then he definitely wouldn't have been put it at Kilmarnock, put it that way.
No, we were certainly lucky to have him, and when he came back as well. You spoke about how if they wish you well when you moved on. You've had a great relationship with the fans. You still do, and I'm sure it will come through on Saturday. So how was it? How difficult was it to leave Killie? I know it was the next step to go to Derby, but it must have been a sore one for you as well.
It's always difficult, because I was always like a grounded person and being brought up the right way from my family, that you always appreciate what people do for you, and that's why I never want to leave in bad terms anywhere. I had chances to leave Kilmarnock before, previous, that I kind of turned down the chance to leave and stuff, or Kilmarnock wanted more money or whatever it was at the time. But that at the end of that season, it just felt like it's kind of now or never. What was I, 24 I think I was when I left. I was like, I really want to go down south and see how I got on down there. I'd done the step up from the first division to the SPL. Now I thought I was at the right time to step up down south, and I think I'd played maybe 250 games by the time I went down south, and you're like, right, well, you've done your apprenticeship basically. Let's go and see if you can hack it down there. And then it was a case I turned up at Derby, and the same thing when I turned up at Clyde and I turned up at Kilmarnock. It's like, right, can I establish myself in a team? Can I play as many games as possible and stuff like that, and take it from there. And I always thought that if I didn't go down there and didn't go well, then I could always come back and play in the SPL, because I knew I could play at that level.
Well, your move to Derby, I mean, what a success it was. You had a brilliant period down there, a couple of things stuck out, a couple of Player of the Year awards. Me and Monty were looking before we came on it. You were in a championship team of the season, and some of the players that you were in there went on to win the Premier League and all the rest of it. But the big ones, the hat-trick against Forest, and if I'm right in saying, your trial with Derby, was it Billy Davis that didn't take you on, so that must have been good for you to score a hat-trick against them.
I'm not really that type of person, but because I did have a good conversation with Billy when he was telling me he wasn't actually keeping me. He was saying, like, obviously he wanted to keep me, blah blah blah. But then when he goes to Forest, you're like, well, we just don't really like him at Forest. It's just one of them, isn't it? And it just sometimes things like that in football just happen. They just work out like that. Like, they've got these ways of, like, not so much evening themselves out, but strange things just happen in football. It's just what happens. But just to beat Forest 5-0 and score a hat-trick and be the first person to do it in 100 and, I think it's 118 or 120 years or something, was an incredible day. Like, my whole family came down for that game. I think leading up to that game in Derby we hadn't scored in, I don't know, 4 or 5 games, so obviously we hadn't won in that time either. And then you're turning up and you're thinking, oh Jesus, we're playing Forest now, it's like a must-win game for us. It's a must-win game at the best of times, but never mind going into it in that run of form, and everything clicked. I scored after, I think it was about 5 or 6 minutes, and then Forest weren't on a great run either at the time, and then they just went, their heads just went down, and we battered them that day. That could have been more, and that's definitely right up there as one of the best days in my career, if not my life. But my wife might listen to this, and my son when he's older, so
I know you can't
stay reserved a bit.
I know you can't legislate for like scoring a hat trick, but see when you said that you scored after 5 or 6 minutes, and especially the kind of advanced role, well, you were in the box all the time with Derby. See when you score that, do you think there's no like you're going to score more that day? Do you just feel like you're going to get more and more chances? Or?
No, I just want to win the game. I just want to beat them. I just want to win. I says I don't care who scores. Anybody can score. They can score an own goal. It doesn't matter to me. I just want to win the game. And you'll find that footballers have just got a mentality where they want to win. And it was just the same in that game, same in any game really. But like we said, like derbies are just different. Derby v Forest is like Celtic v Rangers, like minus the religion and the violence. But so it's massive down there. So for that week, that's all anybody talks about, and you find that everybody in Derby supports Derby, everybody in Nottingham supports Nottingham. So it's like a really big rivalry, and to do that and score the hat trick that day was incredible. But I remember scoring a hat trick that season earlier against Millwall at the Den, and that almost caused a riot because their fans are mental. And I actually thought I would score a hat trick. To be fair, I got onto tour a couple of times. With Kilmarnock and thought, don't think it's ever going to happen. And then we got the penalty. We're 4-0 up against Forest. We got the penalty, and I'm like, well, I have to take it, didn't I? It wasn't a case of like, do you want to take it? I was like, no, I have to take it. But if the game was closer, if I was on 2 goals and it was 2-0, like, I wouldn't have been taking the penalty. I'm not a selfish type of player that it's all about me. It's about the team winning.
Absolutely. One of the other things that stick out about Derby, and again you'll maybe be sick to death talking about it, but the playoff heartache in it. I mean, I think it was 2 playoff finals. One of the ones that stick out to me, I think it was 2014, and he's battered QPR. I remember watching it, hoping they went up, obviously for you, keeping an eye on the results, and he's battled, and then Bobby Zamora pops up with a goal with 5 to go, and it just wasn't to be.
No, it was draining. I've just spoke about the best day of my career. That's right up there with the worst. We did batter him that day. I got dropped on the day of that game, which kind of made me and Steve McClaren have a wee bit of a rift going into the next season and stuff, because that season I'd scored like my best season. I had 16 goals and 14 assists, and I'd won Player of the Year and get in the team of the season. I thought, how can I possibly get dropped for this game? Like, I obviously missed the second leg of the semi-final just with a kind of back injury, but if push came to shove, I could maybe have made that game. And then in the championship it's a wee bit weird, because after the second leg you've got about 10 days or 11 days to the final, so I had plenty of time to be fit for the final. But that day we battered Brighton 4-1, and I felt that the manager just picked his team for the final based on one game instead of the previous 46, so I was a wee bit annoyed about that, missing that game. I'm not saying if I played we would have won by any stretch of the imagination, but to miss that game and then lose it the way we did, with them being down to 10 men scoring in the last minute, was just, it's hard to go over.
Absolutely. So was that McLaren's reason then? Was it based on, as you said, the Brighton game before, or no what to aggravate your injury even though it was the last game of the season? Was it?
No, my injury was fine. It was just a case that he just picked the team and I wasn't in it, which I found a bit strange, but aye. Maybe the less said the better.
So again, you had a good loan spell with Cardiff, and then they end up getting promoted, and right in saying they wanted to take you there, but that fell through. I've heard you say before you've got absolutely no regrets about ending at Derby, but there must be something in you where you wish you got the chance to play in the Prem, and you wanted to do that with Derby. But
I wanted to do it with Derby. After that season we talked about, with losing the playoff final, I was close to joining Burnley. They went up automatically that season with somebody, I can't remember who off the top of my head, maybe Leicester. I was very close to joining them. They had an offer on the table. They had a bid kind of accepted by Derby because I had a release fee in my deal, and then I don't know, something just cut Derby off my new contract. Now I spoke to my family. I spoke to my now wife. We were settled in Derby. I was like, do we really need to move? Like, I want to play in the Premiership, of course. Everybody wants to play at the highest level. Then, like we spoke about, that would have been the next progression again for me, going from the Championship to the Premiership. But I was thinking, like, no disrespect again, it was to Burnley. They were odds on to get relegated, so it would be like 1 year in the Premiership, and then I would say to myself, but if you go to the Premiership for 1 year and do well, you could end up at another club in the Premiership and stuff like that. So I don't have any regrets. I suppose I would maybe like to look back and see what would have happened if I did go to like a Burnley or somebody like that. But I love my time at Derby. I would never change it for the world, really. Apart from getting promoted, that's the only thing that I'm devastated about down there. Incredible time. The fans have always been fantastic with me since the first day I walked through the door. They just taken like kind of shine to me because I think the way I played, like 100%. It's easy to say you're going to give 100%. It's a different matter going out and doing it. And yeah, it was an incredible time I had down there. But then obviously Gary Rowett came in. He played a wee bit of a different formation where it kind of didn't really suit me as a type of player to a certain extent. So I didn't play in the first few games of the season. And he said to me, like, will you go out on loan and all this kind of stuff? And I was like, no, I want to stay. I want to fight for my place in the team. I want to be at Derby. I want to stay here. He asked me a couple of times, and then you're like, well, he's basically telling me, isn't he? He's basically saying you need to go on loan or you're not going to play. And then in like Cardiff, we'd been kind of mentioned maybe a week or so before the end of the window, and I was like, no, I want to stay at Derby, fight for my place. And then I think with about 2 minutes to spare, the paperwork went through and I ended up at Cardiff. And not for 1 minute did I think I was going to Cardiff and getting promoted, but I think Cardiff had won their first 5 games of the season, and then you're thinking, right, well, is that a fluke? Is that just a good start? Is that going to continue? And then it was weird because went to Cardiff, had a great time there, loved it at Cardiff as well, but when Cardiff were playing Derby, it was like I wasn't allowed to play, so it's like who do you support kind of, one of them. But we got promoted. That was excellent. It was incredible to see like all the fans out in the streets of Cardiff, open top bus parade, all that kind of stuff. All the lads went to Ibiza, so that was excellent. Then they were saying, well, Warnock was saying like they want to sign me, but they couldn't agree a fee with Derby. I think they were like 500 grand apart and whatever it was. So I just thought they'd maybe come in the middle, but then Lampard got the Derby job, and I'm like, my God, it's Frank Lampard. I don't want to leave. It's Frank Lampard. I'm like in the gym in the off season, basically being promoted to the Premiership with Cardiff in the gym, my mate, and you've got Frank Lampard phoning you, and you're like, what's happening here? Is this like actually, is this real? So I'm like everybody else. I'm not a fan of football, and you like to see Frank Lampard being as a incredible player, world class, the top of the game. And I remember the first conversation I had to him, I was like, he was saying like, how would you play and all this kind of stuff, and I was like, I just try and be a shite version of you. But it kind of broke the ice a wee bit, and he thought I was kidding, but I was like genuinely being serious. I was just trying to like base my game on being like a poor version of him and like Gerrard and stuff like that, because I was never going to make it to the level they made it to. But he was a great guy, really down to earth. You would never have known what he'd done in his career, how much money he had or how many medals he's had. He'd talk to you like a normal person on the same level, really down to earth. And I just wanted to play for him. I thought that take the Derby out of it as well, just like the Frank Lampard thing. You're like, wow, he's like an icon in the game. I want to learn from him. If you can't learn from Frank Lampard how to play attack midfielder, you'll not learn from anybody. And I played like a good few games under him until I got another ankle injury.
Well, the amount of top class managers you did work under at Derby, it's crazy to read, and obviously I know there's stuff with McLaren and that, but you spoke really highly of Nigel Clough in the past as well, and was he different class? Did they tell many stories about his old man?
No, not at all. It's like you've got your Billy Reid who gave me a chance at Clyde, then your Jim Jeffries who gave me a chance at Kilmarnock, and Nigel Clough gave me a chance to go down south, and he took a chance on me because you never know how it's going to go. We've got a young lad from Scotland going down to the Championship, and he's trying to rebuild the squad, but he was excellent for me. He was like a father figure as well. He just taught me like a lot more morals and stuff. He just taught you about the game, and everything was simple. There was no grey area. He would definitely tell you if you had a bad game in a nice possible way on this podcast, but not in the changing room. We'd have like some meetings after games when we didn't play well, and you would just like watch the full game back, and they were hard to watch sometimes. So he was like a hard man but a fair man, and I thought that's really like my type of manager. I don't want to be like cuddled if I played bad. Like, you just want to be left alone, and you have to accept it yourself. Like, the manager can only do so much for you going out onto the pitch and stuff like that. So he was excellent for me. I was devastated when he lost his job, like devastated, because he gave me a chance, and I thought he got sacked too early. But then McCann came in, and we rode this wave and got to the playoff final and stuff like that. So it was a wee bit different, but he was great for me. Still keep in contact with him now, and yeah, I always watch out for his results when he was at Burton, Sheffield United, and now Mansfield, and it was sad to see them lose the playoff final just there.
Yeah, so you end up coming to the end of your Derby career. You're an absolute legend in there. It goes with it saying. I seen a video on YouTube where the fans lifting you up and partying and whatever. I don't know if you went back to watch a game or you just.
That was actually good and bad. That was me and David Nugent were injured for the next playoff final that we lost to Aston Villa. And I just thought like there was something in my head that I kind of knew I was leaving. I knew that we had our son, we were coming back home and stuff like that. It was kind of like, it wasn't 50-50, but we knew we were going to come back home. So I was like, I want to go and enjoy the game and try and just enjoy it as a fan. Maybe a wee bit naive for me and Nudge that we went to Covent Gardens and it was just full of Derby fans everywhere, as you can imagine. And then you're in a pub, you've had a few drinks, you're up in the shoulders, and you're just like, I don't know what to do. Like, you're a wee bit drunk as well. So it was that was a really good night. But when you wake up in the morning and you realise you're not playing at Wembley because you're injured and you're hungover, it's not ideal. But it was good time and experience that as well.
You spoke about you kind of knew it was coming to an end at that point. Just try to almost exclusive for the podcast here, but I remember like it was about the March 2019. I think it was the Express or whatever up here ran with a story that you were going to come back to Kilmarnock. That was a period where we finished third under Steve Clarke. Obviously, you left to take Scotland at the end of the season. Was there any truth in that? You ended up at Aberdeen. The alleged a pre-contract was on the table. Was there any chance you ever coming back to Killie?
Not that I'm aware of. I kind of have a relationship with the guy that looks after me, and I says like I'm not really interested in people saying they're interested in me. If like, cause I could phone up a player and say Barcelona are interested in you. I think like it means absolutely nothing. Like I say, like just tell me if there's a contract on the table, then that's when you can kind of start speaking and stuff like that. So I don't know if people are just putting two and two together that I was coming back home. I live in Kilmores. If you speak to Kilmarnock, he's gone back to Kilmarnock, and you can understand like the kind of way they were going with it, but I don't think it ever got, well, it definitely didn't get close for me because I never once went to go and meet the manager or go down to the stadium or anything like that. So as far as I'm concerned, like the offer wasn't there, but again, I don't know, sometimes maybe things happen in the background that you don't know about, but yeah, that's just the way it was. Like, gutted.
You gutted in a way that you never got the chance to come back to Killie? Because I think you said to me before that you would have always liked to come back and sign for Killie.
I used to say in my career, like, I would love to like come back from Derby, go back to Kilmarnock, go back to Clyde, and then kind of like the older I got, I was like, do you go back and like do you ruin your reputation if it doesn't go well and stuff like that? And I was like, is it going to be the same if you go back? And I've seen players go back to clubs before, and it's just like it's just not the same. And I didn't want my memories. My memories of Kilmarnock are really high. I loved my time there. I loved everything about the place. I loved going back, and I didn't want to lose that kind of relationship that I had with the fans and going back and it not going well and stuff like that. So I don't know if it's maybe a good thing in a sense that it didn't happen, if it was ever going to, but because I even had like a slight chance of going to Clyde there when I joined Stenhouse Moor, and I had the same thoughts then. I was like, do you go back? Like Clyde fans obviously wanted us to go back because of what happened against Celtic and the time I had there and stuff, but I don't know if it's the same. I don't know if it's like the fairy tale that you kind of want it to be, or if it's just like a non-event kind of.
Well, you end up eventually finding yourself at St Johnstone in the most successful season of their history, and you came out with a historic cup double. I mean, is that of course it's a dream come true. You win the Scottish Cup, you win the League Cup, but I presume it's not how you envisaged it as a wee guy with the COVID season and no fans there. I mean, did that hamper it a wee bit? I mean, nobody can take the medals away from you. But
I don't. Well, if you told me when I signed for St Johnstone I'd win the Scottish Cup and the League Cup, I thought you were mad, to be honest. But I don't know. It's weird. Like, we obviously just turned up at a hotel. Not even a hotel. We turned up at a meeting point. We jumped on a bus. We went to, I think it was about 3 or 4 buses. Went to Hampden. We got dropped back at our car. That's when we won the League Cup. We got dropped back at our car. Drove home, and it was when we won a major trophy in Scotland. And then you're back in your house for about 6 o'clock having a drink with your wife, and you're just thinking, I hope she doesn't listen to this again. You're just thinking, this isn't really where I want to be. Like, and it's probably where my wife didn't want to be either. She wanted probably to be out celebrating ways, because she's seen like the sacrifice you put in throughout the few years, or all the years, sorry, that you're together to get where you want to be and do what you want, and then you win this major trophy, and then you're just like sitting in your house. Like, it could have just been a pre-season game, and then going into the Scottish Cup final. Like, I think my father-in-law dropped me off at Hampden, and it's like, you're getting dropped off at Hampden off your father-in-law. Like, is this really the Scottish Cup final? But like you say, you've got the medals, you've got the pictures and all that, you've got the memories, but it's hard to talk about it in a sense, because obviously it was during COVID and we were going through like a pandemic in the world, and you're wanting to moan about not having fans and your family at Hampden just to see you lift a trophy or play a game of football when people are losing like family members and stuff like that, and there's this pandemic going on for the world. So I kind of a wee bit hard to speak about, because I think you just come across like a wee bit of an idiot if you say like it hampered it and all that kind of stuff. But when you're growing up and you're looking at Scottish football and supporting Scottish football and seeing the Scottish Cup final being the showpiece of the season, stadium's packed, like Hampden's packed out, then you're seeing the open top bus parade and stuff like that, and we had none of that. And you're like, you would never envisage that if you won the Scottish Cup, and you would never envisage it with St Johnstone probably. But yeah, it's one of them. It's, as a young lad, if you told me again I was going to win the Scottish Cup, then I'd snapped your hand off for any situation. And back when I was 16, if you said you're going to win the Scottish Cup but there's going to be no fans there, I'd have still snapped your hand off. So yeah, it's just one of them.
Well, you're now at Stenhousemuir, as we spoke about. You're going to be running out in Rugby Park on Saturday. I mean, what's your plans for there? How's the part-time element of it? I'm right in saying you're doing real estate stuff?
Yeah. People think it's a wee bit strange that you play professional football then you're going to like kind of being an estate agent, but what fans don't understand or don't see, they don't see what you're doing away for the club. Like, you get abused as a player, saying you only work from 10 till 12 and then you go back and you lie in your bed, but that's not really what happens. Like, that's just this kind of myth that goes around with football. But sad that I went away and I studied and I became a personal trainer. I'm now doing estate agents, but I started actually buying, selling houses and letting them out when I moved to Kilmarnock. When I got like a better wage, I bought a flat, and then I got a bit more of a better wage, I bought another flat and stuff like that. So it's kind of something I've been progressing from like 2009, I think it was, I bought my first flat or something like that. So it's not like as drastic as people actually think or look at it. Now, if you told me when I was leaving St Johnstone I was going to go part-time, but it probably wasn't even top of my list. But with the injury that I've got, it's kind of like obviously an impact injury and stuff, like the wear and tear, the more you do, the worse it gets and stuff like that. So when I was at St Johnstone for the couple of years there, I didn't train every day anyway, so effectively was part-time, but my part-time was and it was still in the morning, so you still had the rest of the day. So it was a case of days to try and stay full-time and just keep on dragging it out for as long as possible and just keep on battering your body. And I also had a picture in my head that I wanted to be able to play football with my son. I wanted to play golf with him, like all the sports, and give him the same chance that my family gave me. And I was like, you've had your career, you've done this and this or whatever. And then obviously I know Fraser Wright from Kilmarnock, so he's like phoned me. And to be honest, when I went to go and meet Fraser and the manager, Stephen Swift, I had probably no intention of signing. I was probably going more out of respect just to speak to them because they'd showed an interest, and then I liked what they had to say. I can understand that my body can't cope with training every day anymore, what I find hard now with part-time is kind of leaving my house at like 5:15 at night and going to training and try to get motivated to train at that time of night when you've been used to doing it during the day for 19-20 years or whatever it is. So it's hard to get used to. The facilities are different, the kit, like kind of all that stuff. Like the first few times I went, I didn't take a towel because I just thought like you'd get given a towel, so that's just what happens. But you have to take your towel, you have to take your boots, you have to take your shin guards, where you get spoiled the higher up you go. Like you take nothing. They take like all the responsibility away from you and they just want you to concentrate in the game. So it's kind of like me getting like a wee bit grounded again, like back to where I was when I was at Clyde. But I always said that I wanted to play for as long as possible, and it still counts as in your career appearances and stuff like that. So I've not got like this aura about me or whatever you want to call it, a big timeness where I'm too good to go and play for Stenhousemuir. I want to turn up, be one of the lads and play and hopefully have a successful season, and that's where we're at. Just want to play for as long as possible. And one of the things that probably helped me is I don't know for certain what I want to do when I retire, so I've got nothing to go straight into. Like, estate agency's alright, like it's good when I'm doing it and stuff, but it's not the same as football. Obviously nothing will be the same as football. I'm not too big into coaching and stuff like that. The personal training was alright, but that was kind of all for myself, so I want to continue to play. It keeps you ticking over and staying fit and stuff like that, and I've actually really enjoyed it. I've only been there a month now, played a few games, but it will take a wee bit of time to get used to, but I think once you're used to it, if it's only for a season or two, then it is what it is. My ankle could maybe give way at any time and then I'd potentially have to call it a day, and I had open discussions with the manager about that and he's happy with it and stuff, so that's what it is. It's a good place to be.
Excellent. No, we'll look forward to seeing you on Saturday and getting a run out back at Killie. Just to finish off with now, you'll maybe be happy with that given how warm we are in here, but I spoke to you before just about your best Killie 11, if you want to run through that, if you had a wee hinky what your formation would be, who the manager would be and the personnel, and you get to captain it.
Am I allowed to be in it?
Aye.
I had to have I'm not great at remembering every single player I played with, and kind of when you get put in a spot with they kind of questions, it's tough because you always miss somebody out. This is me just covering myself here. So I'll probably just play a 4-3-3. That's a formation I like in football. I liked Cammy Bell in goals along with Alan Combe. I find it quite hard to separate them. I got on really well with both of them, and I travelled in with Comer, and he taught me a lot about football and a lot about life and stuff like that when I was going in, but I think they were two great keepers, so I'm picking two keepers. Right, well it's hard. I was going to maybe go with Jamie Hamlet right back, but because of the formation I picked, I'm going with James Fowler at right back. He's a Kilmarnock legend, isn't he? He's another career record holder, appearance or whatever it is. He was fantastic at the club, and it was really good with me. It was like the biggest moaner I've probably played with, but you understand why he's moaning at you now, because he had standards where he wanted to win and stuff like that, and he seemed like a young lad. If you want to pull on your weight, then he'd tell you, and you're happy with it at the time. You think, like, why is he just always shouting at me? But the older you get, you understand that a lot more, and I think that comes with experience. Centre half, I think I put in Pascali. He's a Kilmarnock legend, isn't he? Everybody loves him. He's just he's as mad as a dog, and daft as a brush really. But what you see is what you get, and he's the type of player that you need in your changing room. Like, he was always up for a laugh. He's a good lad. He brought into the culture. He brought into the club. He loves the club. He's always commenting on the club. Comes back over and captain. He's a great guy, great player as well. And centre half, I have to pick Fraser Wright, don't I?
I was going to say that.
He'd batter me tomorrow if I didn't pick him. So, no, Fraser was excellent. I think Fraser was like myself in a sense. That he knew what he was good at, and he'd always give 100%, and he didn't try and do things that he couldn't do and stuff like that. And yeah, a really nice guy, and I think in a sense he was underrated a bit in his career.
Well, it was funny you say that because we done, as a wee feature on the podcast, an underrated 11 with players that would never get into Andy's best Killie's 11, and Fraser Wright I think was in both me and Monty's and a lot of the listeners. So
yeah, definitely he gave everything. Obviously left back, it's got to be Hookie, Gary Hay. He was just Mr. Killie for a bit, wasn't he? I just actually seen him there at Morrison's. He just drove past him, so it was quite good. You obviously lose touch with a few people, and especially going down south, you always say you're going to keep in touch, you know, the rest, but it just becomes harder when you're that further away and stuff like that. But he was an excellent player for Kilmarnock. I think every Killie fan loves him, and he's obviously definitely welcome back at Rugby Park anytime. Midfield, went with three in there, went with William Kelly. I think he was obviously younger when he was at Kilmarnock, but you could always see the potential that he had. In the way he played, I just liked the way he played. He was an honest player. He's went on to have a great career now. I think he's down at Coventry, captain at Coventry and stuff like that. And I think when you go back to what he went through when Kilmarnock won the League Cup and stuff with his family, it showed like a lot of strength of character for him. So I put him in centre mid because I think he's somebody wanting to kind of in the trenches with you. And probably above him in the two number 8s, I go with Eremenko. We've spoke about Eremenko enough. Mehdi Tawil. I liked Mehdi. I think they were two good players for us. They kept the ball for us. They were creative for us. They didn't do too much work off the ball, but you could understand that we were set up to get them on the ball, so we wanted them to reserve their energy, so when they got the ball they had the energy to kind of play the passes and be creative and take players on. So they were good players to play with. They were good players to learn off as well. I think my time at the club, probably Connor Samlin was probably the best striker we had in that purple patch that he had. It's quite lucky how he got his chance, but when he got his chance he took it, because I think we played maybe Airdrie in a cup competition. I think Danny Invincible had been playing up front instead of him, and Danny got rested thinking he'll just play at the weekend, and Connor comes on and Connor starts the game and scores a hat-trick and never really looked back and got a move to the Premiership with Wigan, and he was good. Like, obviously Eremenko would assist him most of the time, but he was going through and he would finish everything, and on that time in his career it was basically unplayable, and he helped us be successful that season. And then two wide players, James Dayton, remember him?
Aye, I thought he was an underrated 11 as well for a lot of people.
I think him, David De Silva was. I remember him being a really good player. But
he
we'll
come
go
back as well. That a lot of folk actually forget about him. Alan Johnson soon.
Yeah, Alan Johnson as well. When you look at his career and his ability and stuff like that, so I'll just go with Dayton because I can't pick between the three of them, and I got on with him probably the best out of the three. So we'll put him in. And then the other side, I liked David Fernandez. I can't remember what Kilmarnock fans thought of him or how long he was there and stuff like that, but I think his left foot and his ability and stuff like that, obviously when I played with him, his legs were kind of gone, he couldn't run much, but his ability on the ball was incredible.
One of the best I've ever seen at holding up the ball. If we were up 1-0, him and Mehdi would keep the ball in the corner between them, so he was well thought of amongst the Killie fans, and if it weren't for that injury with Gary Caldwell, things could have been different. But
you've got like the older players that were there as well when I was there that you probably don't appreciate them at the time, like your Gary Locks, your remember David Lilly, Simon Ford, people like that who were excellent for me. Like they teach you a lot about football and stuff like that, and I think they just deserve a special mention because they were a massive part of my time at Kilmarnock as well.
And then the last one, the manager, if you had to pick.
I really I liked all three that I had basically for different reasons. Jim Jeffries gave me my chance, so I'll always be in debt to him for that. I really liked being under Jimmy Calderwood, not just for the fact that he gave me the armband. I did actually enjoy being working with him like Monday to Friday. We obviously had a poor season or half a season, whatever it was, with him, and then obviously Mixu, we had our best times under Mixu, so it's probably hard to pick my actual standout manager because they've all been like great to me in different ways. But yeah, I don't know, Jim Jeffries maybe just because he gave me a chance, but Mixu for the way he played, and maybe Jimmy for the way he treated me.
Excellent. Well, no, that's us. Honestly, can't thank you enough, Craig, for helping us out. It's very much appreciated, and all the best on Saturday, and look forward to seeing you there.
You don't mean that.
Cheers again, mate.
No problem. Cheers.
Alright, ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to episode 7 of Forever and Ever, the Killie podcast. All the thanks in the world goes to the one and only Craig Bryson for coming in, chatting to Killie Cal. That was tremendous, mate. What a pleasure for me just sit and listen to that and enjoy it. What a guy.
No, it was different class, as I've said before. He's helped me out hunters when I was at uni, and he's just a top guy and somebody that's always well thought of as a player. It's not just the fact that he's brand new, but he was a quality player.
He was tremendous.
His career that he just spoke about there, it was great. I was nervous then. It's a while for I've done Q&A anyway.
You couldn't tell. But I think one thing, he was very self-depreciating. He was talking about himself. He was honestly one of the best midfielders that I've ever seen play for us, and a tremendous guy, and we thank him very much. So we hope you enjoyed that. That's a feature we're hoping to bring you pretty regularly, getting some ex-players into chat, and offer a bit of proper kind of professional insight into how things work at the club and beyond. Right, but before we go, we can't leave you without the famous Killie Trust Bingo. We wouldn't do that to you. So there is, I believe, £18 in the coffers. So far, we've had some developments on people thinking about possibly sponsoring it going forward as well. So we'll talk a wee bit more about that next week too. But we're into Killie Trust Bingo. If you don't know the format, I dip into squads from the Killie past. I give Killie Cal here 3 squad numbers. He has to tell me who wore the squad numbers, and every time he gets it right, we give £1 to the Killie Trust. So there's £18 in so far. You've been great. Last week was too easy for you.
Aye, so I'm going to pay for it this week, I think.
Right, well, actually, we're better to be more modern this year. Right,
okay.
But the numbers might throw you slightly.
Right, aye.
Right, okay, so the season we're going for this year is, this week, is season 2019-2020. Okay? And the squad numbers that I'm looking for are number 4, number 15, and number 16. So 1920 was the season, and the numbers I'm looking for are 4, 15, and 16. What have you got for me?
Is 4 Alex Bruce?
4 is Alex Bruce, yes, correct. Centre half, son of Steve.
15's annoying me. 15 and 16 are both annoying me. I'm going to use my cash in for one of them. Got to go 15. Is that Harry Bunn?
15 is not Harry Bunn. Harry Bunn wore 11.
11 or something.
Harry Bunn wore 11.
I was going to say Connor Johnson, but I think he was 5.
He was 5, yes.
Right, so I concede that one. I concede that.
So no 15?
Nah.
No.
Right.
Number 15 that season was Mohamed El Makrini.
Oh, I should have got that.
Mohamed El Makrini, underrated player. Good player.
Very good player, aye.
Asked to do the job that he wasn't there to be doing, playing behind the striker, but he did very well. So, right, number 16.
This one, can I cash in my...
You can cash in your 50p. Okay, the number 16 that season was a striker. Very underwhelming.
Simeon Jackson.
It was Simeon Jackson that wore number 16. Doesn't that feel like a million years ago already? Mohamed El Makrini and Simeon Jackson.
I'm very disappointed I didn't get El Makrini. Because I can just see it now exactly.
But that's £1.50 into...
we'll take that. We'll take that.
It's more money for a brilliant cause. It takes up to £19.50 for Killie Trust Bingo. Everybody, thank you so much for supporting the podcast. We hope you've enjoyed this extended podcast today. And again, huge thanks to the one and only Craig Bryson for coming in and talking to us about his time at Killie and doing it at Derby and everything else that he had to talk about. We really appreciate it. We'll obviously be back next week with a big preview ahead of the Dundee United game, our first league game of the season. We're really hoping for some of these signings. I feel more calm already than I did earlier on. I was panicking earlier.
Just Bryson's soothing voice.
Bryson has soothed me. So we'll be back next week with episode 8, building up to the Dundee United game. As ever, keep us posted on the Twitter. Let us know how you're feeling about things on the Facebook. Keep sending us messages. We love reading your ideas and your contributions. Thank you so much for listening. We'll be back next time.